Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rocks with Me. It's your girl, Roxy, and today I'm super excited because I have a very special guest, Jeryn A Turner, who is the owner of Chameleon Consciousness, a business she founded, and she's also an Amazon bestseller. Her books include A Dream Come True, which is about a mother-daughter relationship going on a trip, The Biggest Star, What Do You See, and What Do You See Companion Journal, which the What Do You See is a children's book. Topic is of grieving. Like I told you this the first time we met, like that book itself probably hits so many hearts because children are aware, but it's kind of difficult finding the words to explain to them. So kudos to you to like writing a children's book that's on a deep topic, but so understandable and relatable for children to understand and like take in at a time that's really hard and life-changing. But thank you so much for joining me, Jeryn. I'm so excited.
I am too. It's good to see you again.
Likewise. And I have to say, this podcast, I do share stories of resilience. And when we first linked up, so you could join, because you joined me on my last podcast, Good Vibes, Thick Thighs, and you came with a lot of gems and a lot of like inspiring words that left me like mind blown, where like it's one of the episodes I could still listen to and take in a bunch of stuff you were saying. And so when we linked up, so you could join me again on my solo podcast, you were like, yes, resilience, we could talk about. I'm so ready. And then come to find out, you get an injury while we're planning to record, and that doesn't stop you.
Exactly. You have to keep going. Now, normally I would say one step at a time. You didn't really explain the injury. I had a fall while visiting family, dislocated my ankle, fractured it in at least 5 places, had to have surgery. I'm still within that week time frame. So when we were scheduling the time, I thought about postponing it, but then I said, the topic is resilience. The best way to talk about resilience is to be an example of this.
You are a clear example of what this is. So first, I do want to touch on your business, Chameleon Consciousness. When did you create that business and how did you come about it?
Yeah, I created it several years ago. So I wrote A Dream Come True in 2017. And as I was forming the author process and figuring out different things, a very good friend of mine said, you need a great CPA. That's where the LLC came from. It took me a little bit of time to figure out a name. And I going back to a chameleon who changes its colors. And I had just really been diving into resilience, transformation, breathwork, yoga, all of the things that are around mindfulness. And so in 2017, as I was writing the book, we created Chameleon Consciousness as a umbrella for all things Jeryn. That really comes from the place that we can be in several different arenas and environments, but for us to stay true to our soul's purpose, for us to be grounded in what is important, that even though we may have to change forms, that who we are within has to remain consistent. So that's the level of consciousness that you have as you operate as a chameleon.
And chameleons are so adaptable to their surroundings to kind of blend into. So that's like huge itself. And the mindfulness is a very important thing, especially in today's society where a lot is going on. You can't turn on the news without feeling some kinds of anxiousness, at least me. And yesterday, when I opened up my Instagram, the first thing that came up on my feed was you talking about anxiety and how to like let go in order to start your day. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect timing for me.
Yes. And I think more than ever, we cannot run from the news, life, the political environment. So just like you, I don't watch the news or I minimize the news. Being in my parents' house for this recovery, I have been exposed to the Democratic Conference, which has been an amazing convention, just to see the energy, people speaking and things of that nature. I bring that up because there has to be a way that you can engage, but still come back to your baseline. And sometimes people assume anxiety is a bad thing. Anxiety has a level of anticipation. And I think as we are going through the summer, as kids are going back to school, there's a level of anticipation. If we're not being honest about ourselves about what we're feeling, if it stays stagnant, it does turn into anxiety. So thank you for number one, following me. And number two, mentioning the video. I have been sharing a lot of tools and techniques that have worked for me with others because as a chameleon, I am still in corporate. I do yoga. I have a great family. Like I am doing all of these different things. And there's energy in each of those environments. And if I do not decompress going from one environment to the other, the energy, and like I said, anticipation turns into anxiety if you don't address it, may feel like anxiety as I interact with others. And it's not fair to them. It's not fair to my soul either, because the soul always wants peace and relaxation. So, yes, the Instagram that I created was really saying, let's acknowledge that you're feeling these things. And if you can create your baseline first thing in the morning, the rest of your day flows from a baseline of where you should come back. Like everyone says, I started my morning and one thing after the other happened. I spilled the coffee on myself. And then for whatever reason, I was behind the train trying to go to work. And then my kids had issues. And so by the time they get to wherever they're supposed to be, it's all this stuff. But if you create the baseline first thing in the morning, always saying, no matter what, I'm going to come back to the breath. Am I breathing? Versus getting caught up in everybody else's frequency. And as you mentioned, this frequency is high because there's so many different things that we're dealing with, the news, the environment overseas, the wars, like all of these different things can make you feel like, oh my goodness, something is wrong. We're all empathetic and we all connect with that energy. So consciously, we have to go back to something to do in the morning that creates that mindfulness so that we can have a meaningful day. And that we're not chasing peace, but that we're creating peace.
Definitely. It's all about like your perspective on things, I guess we could say.
Yes.
Because like you mentioned, it could be like we're stuck behind a train and it's making us late. But then if we flip the perspective, it could be like, oh, it probably caused me from not getting to an accident closer to where I was going or something like that.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
I know I didn't mention it earlier, but you are a yoga instructor and you are a Reiki practitioner. So you deal with energy in all shapes and forms. You wear, like you said, the corporate hat, a spiritual hat, all of this, you connect them in a sense that others probably cannot. You
Yes.
probably have, advice and tips on how to, so to say, go from one environment to the other without, stressing yourself out and getting overwhelmed.
Correct. And a lot of that is knowing that you have to decompress. And many of us are working in a remote environment. You are using the drive home to decompress. Like people would say, oh, I have a 20-minute drive. But then the good thing is, by the time you walked into the house, you could embrace your family in a different way. Because we are going from a home office right to cookies off at soccer practice, we're not giving ourselves that time to decompress. And you're right. Part of why I got into energy within Reiki and yoga was because I didn't know how to turn off other people's energy. So now, if I go from one environment to the other, I decompress by taking 3 cleansing breaths, breathing in through the nose, open mouth, exhale. I do that 3 times. And if something has happened, I let people know I had a bad day. And my bad day was because I had a conflict with someone who wasn't listening to me. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel seen. And I let them know. So if I tend to be different, they don't take personal. So it's definitely, and decompression shouldn't be like 20, 30 minutes. It can be if you need that time. But if you only have, say, 5 minutes, drink hot water with lemon. Water in itself is going to change your frequency. It's going to bring things down. You cannot sip hot water fast. You're going to have to be very intentional so you don't burn your mouth. That snaps you back into reality. If you've had like a super bad day, I also recommend people splashing their face with 7 splashes of cold water so they can kind of be woken back. If that still is not working for you and you have the time, a walk is always going to take you from a different frequency because nature and the environment has a way to balance out your energy. So those are things that have worked for me. But like I said, because some people feel like mindfulness is hard and takes a long time. If we feel like it's overwhelming, we're not going to do it because we're already dealing with an overwhelming situation. But if we can either identify how much time you have, as little as 2 minutes, as most as 20 minutes, that will decompress you from, oh my goodness, I went from this environment to another environment. And I think once you know that everything is energy, then you can say, oh, well, that's why they do it. I have so much respect for people who go into the military, but think about people who are military to civilian life. And I've had the benefit of working with a lot of veterans. They have a whole program to decompress. So we see it in those environments, but we're not honest about ourselves about the amount of stress that we are in and under in our own environments.
True. I didn't even think of that, like working remotely how we don't have that chance to decompress. Like driving to a place to work and then the drive back, you could blast the music, let it all out. By the time you get home, you're like, okay, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Like I'm hybrid. So when I'm working from home, all I do is close the office door and then go straight into mom life, wife life.
Yeah. Yes. It's like it clashes. You walk
Yeah.
out and it's, your kids are like, oh, mom's here. And they're waiting for you and they want you to be on. They don't have the time for you to rank from 0 to 10. They're like, no, I need 10, Roxy, all the time. And
Yeah.
literally, so if you've just given 20 to work, you're coming from a deficit. And so that's the piece where when I work with people with energy and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I'm like, let's go back to math. Let's just say we have 10 emotions in a day. If you are using 20 at work, now you're coming from a deficit. So that's really the purpose of yoga and exercise. It is to regenerate that energy when you're depleted. That's the power of great food. Because in our society, especially moms and wives, you're usually coming from a point of deficit. So that's why I preach that. It's not just, oh, exercise so you look good. Now, granted, I think that's a great benefit, but it really is to say, how am I using my energy? What can I do to replenish my energy? What foods, what activities give me a surplus so that I'm not in that deficit?
Yeah. And whatever you encompass around you is basically where your frequency is going to be at. Like, so if
Correct.
you don't have time to decompress and like let it go, it's the domino effect, like you spoke on earlier.
Exactly.
So I have started reading your book, A Dream Come True, the mother-daughter
Okay.
relationship. And it's so relatable because of the relationship, especially when you describe how a mom kind of puts this persona of how perfect they are without admitting their mistakes and all. And then they want the best for their daughter. And so their daughter has this
Right.
like vision of their mother where there's no mistakes and all they want is like the best, the best, the best, the best, academically, personally, all that. And then it's not
Mm-hmm.
until they're older where they realize there's more of a common theme between both mother and daughter than they saw growing up. And you
Correct.
right now explaining like, okay, I walk out the door after work and it's like, okay, now I got to go into mom mode and make
Mm-hmm.
them think that like, okay, everything's set, everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
Without showing that like weakness, because it's hard for anybody as a human to show weakness and being vulnerable about the situation of their emotions and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
in the book, it's like you're describing like there's a sense that we need to in order to be more personable with the people around us so they understand. Like you said, if you just admit, like, hey, you're having a bad day, give me some space, it's going to come off way easier than people getting offended for something that you didn't mean.
Exactly, exactly. Just acknowledging it does wonders for everyone around you. And to your point, so many of our relationships, even great relationships, I mean, mother-daughter relationships, one of the most sacred ones you can have. You have to remove the mask. You have to be honest. You have to be vulnerable. And sadly, if you don't, children grow up with this false sense that they always have to be perfect. So there's so many people I interact with who deal with anxiety and who deal with this constant state of having to be on because they assume because the mom did it all that they have to do it all. No one can do that. The most humbling thing I've experienced with this fall in surgery is needing to ask for help to do basic things. And like you said, like do all these great things, but at this point, a lot of what I've been able to do in the past, I can't do now until I heal. I'm at my parents' house. So where I have been like strong woman and doing these things for my mom, which she is so independent. It's not that I'm doing things health related, but she is finding a different level of connection for her being able to show up for her adult daughter who always seems to have the mask on and seems to have it put together. Now, I've learned not to keep the mask on for long. If something's wrong, I tell them. Even in this journey, like with recovering from an injury, I'm having a bad day. They're like, oh, is it pain? It's pain, but it's also the emotional frustration of I can't do yoga. I'm not able to teach yoga. I'm not able to do the things that were giving me a baseline of health. So what do I now do? So like I'm glad you brought up a dream come true. Mothers and daughters have this sacred space of almost a mirror connection. If I see you, you can see me, but it doesn't get to be beautiful until you are exposed, authentic, and honest.
That's very true. And I'm excited to finish reading it. But it's on
Mhm.
Amazon if you all want to purchase it and read it because it is already halfway through. I'm just like in awe and like really feeling the words that you're putting on paper at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see yourself writing another book?
I do. I think most authors have like all these ideas in their head. And someone asked me, my niece asked me, like, well, why do you write? You know, you're pretty talkative, you're always expressing your feelings. I write because in the written word, there is not that pause where you're waiting for someone to respond. You're just able to get it all out at one time. So there's always books in my head. But I think even in the experience that I'm in today with recovering from surgery and injury, I think that is showing me that there is a real life message in the moment for people who experience unexpected things, for people who go through trauma, where you think you're doing all of the right things and then this happens and you're like, why me? Versus it could have been much worse. And if we go to a place of gratitude, if we go to a place of, like you said, I was driving to work, I'm behind the train. Oh, thank God I was behind the train because now I avoided an accident. I don't know why, but maybe there was a reason that I didn't need to go back. So I think the piece that I'm learning is because there's been other health challenges that I've had in the past where I had to get to the point of the perspective. This happened, and thank God I never lost the perspective and went to the why me and the depression and the I can't do this, so I can't do anything. And I think that there is a new message or a reminder in my mind to say, you've done these books and these books have been great, but there almost is this timely message that I think the universe is getting through to me to say, okay, you were doing all these dope things. This happened. Will you allow this to be a distraction where all your focus is on healing? Which, yes, 99% of my time, it is healing. It's taking the pain medicine. It's doing all these things. But there also is the awareness where I'm not ignoring the whisper that's coming in that's saying, write down what you're feeling. Be authentic with others. Let others see your good days and your bad days. Let others see how you've gone from, I'm not feeling well, but within an hour, I feel much better. Do you drink a lot of water? Like there's a lot of things to your question of, is there another book? Clearly, there is another book because as I'm responding to your question, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many messages that I've gotten just real time. So yes, I am definitely feeling like there's several books in me. I want to do a children's yoga book. I want to do a children's mindfulness book. I want to also do a book where, because I wear the hat of corporate America executive, where I'm letting other people know you don't have to be stressed out all the time. And your boundaries are where you build and create spaces where you can thrive and not feel like you're just on the receiving end of request after request after request. And then real time with the ankle injury, and I'm like looking at my cast, it truly is what in this moment do people need here? That is a reminder that you can still be on the right path and something can happen. But that does not mean you are on the wrong path. That just means now more than ever, you have to dig deeper to tap into all the things that you've been doing in the past that have worked.
Yeah, it's a lot of reflecting too. A lot of reflecting, especially if we're going to
Yeah.
detour on a different journey than we were, treading on and are accustomed to. Because a lot of people do feel uncomfortable with making the change. Like me, I've been at my job for 8 years, and it scares me thinking like, should I look and wander off to a different company? The unknown
Mm-hmm.
is very scary.
It is very scary.
And I mentioned at the beginning, you are like the prime example of what being resilient really is from everything you've gone through. And you did mention when you began practicing yoga, it was because you were diagnosed with a autoimmune illness. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So why don't you speak to our like the listeners about how you technically flip the script from like being diagnosed with something that some people would find as like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, to finding the resilience on like moving past being identified as like an illness and making something of it to benefit not only yourself, but now you're benefiting all those people that you're teaching yoga to.
Yes. So when I think about that experience, it was shocking, but it also was a relief because I knew something was wrong. And it took probably about 4 months for us to figure out, okay, let's give it a name. And I think people who are listening in, there is sometimes a shame associated with sickness. And this was happening in my 20s. So I should be healthy. I should be vibrant. I should have all the things. And I looked at my friends and I didn't feel the same way. It's like I moved a little slower. In the mornings, it was very hard for me to get up. My body ached. And I thought, is this just how my body's supposed to be? And I'm thinking, no, you're young. Like, this is not how life is supposed to be. And the benefit of being raised by a mom who is healthy and has been healthy, I felt like I was older than she was. And so yoga found me when I needed hope. So you're in the doctor's office, they're telling you these are the medicines you're going to take. They're telling you it's debilitating. If you keep staying on this track, you'll have walking issues. You may have to use a cane. I saw people coming into her office with that same condition where you could see yourself 5 to 10 years down. And I gave them, admiration for continuing to show up, but I knew that's not the way I wanted to live life. I knew where this was happening to me, I needed to put some kind of boundary or barrier to say, if this is how bad it gets, I don't want to see what happens in the next 2 to 5 or 10 years going down the path and hearing the worst case scenario. And I think when we talked before, I told you about medical intuitives and other people that I worked with. She was a great doctor. And I preached that everyone should go to the doctor because once you have numbers, you have a baseline. So she saw that my SED rate was really bad. She saw that there was very much a lot of inflammation in the body, did all these tests. So she was like, this is what you have. And the diagnosis is called Sjogren's. Fatigue and pain and stomach issues, and they call them flare-ups, where you could be okay and then you eat something or stress happens and then you have a really bad season. So you asked about the yoga and resilience and how it kind of came back to the Sjogren's diagnosis. I, at that point, was in need of hope. And at that moment, one of my mom's really good friends said, oh, you should talk to this medical intuitive. You're working with the doctors and that's great. But have you thought about how you're thinking? Have you thought about contributing factors that may make these symptoms worse? And that's the one I would say, I don't want to say good thing because there's never a good thing about an autoimmune illness, but because there's flare-ups and you know that sometimes your body is not as bad as other times, it's an indication that there's something that you're doing that is not aligned to health in your body. I was open. At that point, if you had told me drinking salt water would have cured me, I would have drank salt water every day. So I went to the medical intuitive. We looked at my diet. I found out I had a severe gluten allergy. So her plus my allergist got that under control. That helped subside a lot of the symptoms. But I still had the stiffness, which I didn't know how to deal with or address. And even though I was working out, doing elliptical, like low impact exercises, when I was talking to another like spiritual guide, she said, I really think you need to do yoga. And I thought, yoga? That's something I've seen at the gym offered, but I never tried it. She's like, and I think you need to really look at restorative yoga. And then to do the 360 full circle moment, my specialty is restorative yoga, which I'll get to. But in the moment of answering your question, yoga and being open to non-traditional medicine allowed me to say, okay, I can take the medicine, which I did. And I was on Plaquenil and steroid shots and vitamin supplements and all these different things that the medical doctors were telling me to do, which helped to at least give me the motivation to be able to have the energy to do yoga, have the energy to believe that I can do things that could help my health. And when I got into yoga, the first 2 to 3 classes, the teacher kept saying, oh my God, you have a beautiful practice. How long have you been teaching? I mean, how long have you been practicing? And I'm like, oh, I just started. Then it was once again, universe speaking to affirm that not only am I on the right path, but I innately have something in my body that has been longing for yoga. And I have not stopped doing yoga since then. So yoga found me. And then when I got into it, I immediately started to feel relief in my joints and in my muscles. And then I started saying, oh my goodness, I have strength that I thought I didn't have before. So starting in the morning with stretching, because it healed me, I know it's something that everyone should incorporate.
I've tried like videos, but I feel like I haven't ventured too into yoga. But I do hear like where it just like gets your mind away from like all the stresses of the day and stuff, because it's a mindset as well as like the physical that you're doing. Like it works with both.
Yes.
And not a lot of exercises do that.
Correct.
And I know the last time we spoke, I asked about like virtual yoga, if you were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you started on venturing to virtual?
I have a YouTube channel. What I'm grateful for is there was a lot of content that I created prior to my accident. So, those of you that are listening, there is yoga for beginners on my YouTube channel. There is yoga to deal with hip inflexibility. There's yoga to deal with emotional baggage. So there was a lot of content, thank God, that I created prior to falling that I can still leverage and push out. But I'm glad that you brought up that point and the conversation we had. I can't be in every city, in every state, but having that virtual yoga experience, I think, is not only helping others. So glad I had created the content because, like I said before, I can't practice yoga given the injury, but it's great that I have other things that I can still share with the community because, as I said before, we all are looking for outlets and we're all looking for things that will make us good. So, not that I'm plugging it, but if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll be able to see a variety of yoga videos as well as other inspirational messages.
And I'll definitely get to your YouTube channel so I could put in the show notes because now I'm interested in going and seeing your YouTube channel. And it's so cool that you have like yoga for emotional baggage, yoga for this, yoga for different things that we may be going through. And I didn't know yoga could be so like specific in assisting someone in releasing that emotional baggage and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't either. Roxy, so that's another thing I'll mention. People think you have to be in the Himalayan mountains chanting away for you to really experience yoga. Yoga is literally defined as the union of the mind, body, and soul. It is breath. It is being conscious and mindful in the moment. So I mention that because yoga, I think, has gotten a bad rap because people equate yoga with this type of person or sometimes this race. When I show up and they're like, "You're brown," like, okay, this is a different yoga experience. So I took yoga and made it my own and made it relatable. And I started breaking it down because people have told me I can't do yoga. But then they come to my class and they're like, "Oh, your form of yoga is not yoga." And I'm like, "No, no, no, that's yoga. I just teach you different things and meet you where you are so you have an objective versus me just saying, "Oh, check out my YouTube." You could go there and be like, "I'm lost in what and why I'm doing these different poses." But because of the effects and benefits I had by being the yoga student before I was a teacher, I started finding, oh, my shoulders are not as stressed. Or I would be in a pose, Roxy, and I would start crying. So I even tell people, this is why we have the sequence. If you cry and your head's down, no one's going to be able to see you. So I purposely, as a teacher, know there's different poses that will connect with a meridian, a chakra, where you'll have a release. And that's a good thing. Leave it all on the mat. The worst thing you can do is come into the yoga studio or do yoga at home and feel the same way when you stop doing it. That means that yoga video or class was not for you.
That makes sense. And I'm sure people are intimidated because, like you said, there's like a stereotypical vision of yoga that we think of like, oh, I'm supposed to be able to be in a pretzel pose, and do all these like
Mhm.
flexibility and stuff. But you've even mentioned it's not all about that. Like you said, it's just connecting the mind, body, and soul together
Mhm.
that really
Mhm.
makes it what yoga is. So
Right.
I'm encouraging all the listeners to check out your YouTube channel to see if they find a video that fits them because I'm definitely going to do that to see if there's a video like that fits me because like you mentioned if you feel the same from when you started yoga to the end the video wasn't for you and maybe that's why I didn't catch on to yoga so much because it just felt like okay that's it like where's this like epiphany I'm supposed to go through or you know that like I hear
Exactly.
everybody talking about
It's like
like
dating.
it's like what I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. I said it's almost like dating. Like I'm always big on congratulations. So I know you got married, and I'm like, woo! And I'm still in the dating scene. If I went out with that one guy and said, "Oh my God, he represents all guys. I'm never gonna date a person like him again," then I'm doing myself a disservice. We know it in certain aspects of our life, but then we go into others and we are like, I hated it. If I had a dollar for how many times someone said, "Oh, I tried yoga and I hated it." And I'm like, how many times do you try? Oh, one. It could have been a bad teacher. It could have been a teacher having a bad day. It's all of these expectations that we have, where if we have those, we can turn off experiences that can be beautiful. So I almost look at yoga or just other things as a process where it's trial and error. And when it sticks, it sticks. And my type of yoga, as you can tell, I'm talkative. It is yoga to captivate people for at least an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the length of class, but also to drop gems. But when your spirit hears something a second time that you already know, your ears perk up. When you say it a third time, it's like, okay, maybe I need to change. Maybe I need to do things. So the beauty of my yoga experience and the videos I do is to empower people so that they do the movements, but as they move and they're moving in a mindful way, that things start beginning to just make sense in their life.
I feel like with all the gems you say and I feel like what's next in your like path is you making one of those like, those deck of cards where it's like you pick one to read like an inspirational thing. Like I feel like just picking your brain, that's how it is. Like you're saying all these things that are like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm telling you, whenever we vibe, you gave me the idea for the YouTube channel and to put yoga out there. I love, love, love that idea. Like inspirational gems. My niece and nephews call me JT. So I said something recently. I was like, my JT isn't. So maybe I take a play on my words and have the motivational cards because I am big on time. If you are doing all the things, you legit may have 30 seconds. Or maybe you're going into a meeting and you're talking to your person who's going to inspire you and say, Roxy, you got this. And they don't pick up. I want to be that voice where you pick up a card, like you said, or see something on Instagram to say, nobody else may have given me the inspiration I needed, but this random Jeryn, and they're like, what does Jeryn mean? But this random person named Jeryn just gave me one gem. And now that I feel like I can do everything that I need and take on the world, like that is my gift, I think, and my focus in the morning. Like, what can I do to family, friends, even strangers? Like I have the most interesting conversations with people at the grocery store, and to be able to give them just that one thing, that one nudge, that one push where they hold on 30 seconds longer. And then they finally listen to whatever's within themselves that allows them to see, oh, I got this. I'm able to overcome. Because that in itself is, as we go back to the topic of resilience, the basis of resilience.
Yeah. And that's what your business, the Chameleon Consciousness, kind of does too. It promotes that self-love and like where you're getting people, giving people their sense of accountability of changing their mindset, so to say, too, which is like not everybody has that gift to do, to like, help you declutter your mindset, help clear the consciousness so then you could see the beauty in things. And I feel like every time we speak, or every time I even fall across one of your posts on Instagram, it's like that's what you're doing without even knowing it. You have that gift, Jeryn, where it's just like you're impacting so many lives and you probably don't even know it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm so like I'm ecstatic for what the future holds for you, and to see like what else you're going to release into the world, because I mean the words that you speak and then you put onto paper, this is why you're like Amazon's best-selling author. This is why you release books that like hit so many souls, because you have the way with words, which not a lot of people do. So I appreciate you for being just this being in this world and spreading that love and light that like sometimes not a lot of people can feel it, but I feel like with your words, it just resonates to so many people. I know it resonates to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes you don't know if there's that connection. I pray that there's a connection. I hope that there's a connection. And there's a lot of good content out on Instagram, TikTok. There's a lot of good content. But part of my motivation behind my objective was to always have content that built people up and made them tap into confidence that may have been forgotten. So I appreciate you saying that. I've gotten a lot of DMs from people that are like, even though I may not like it, or maybe I don't publicly say anything, you just gave me something that made me see things differently. You made me say, well, what, instead of why me, why not? So those different things, I think if we can transform kind of how the mind thinks. My mom and I have been having great conversations as I'm recovering, and we tend to make things personal. Something happens, it's personal. Roxy just said that. I hate Roxy. I can't believe she said that. When really, It's the pattern of how I receive feedback, and it could be the pattern of how you communicate. If you address the pattern, it's no longer personal. So also in the videos and the Instagrams and my books, I just want them to have another perspective. And even if they don't agree with, maybe if they just are open-minded, going back to your question about how did you get into yoga? You're in the doctor's office, you have a diagnosis with Sjogren's. I got to the point where the path that I was on, I knew where it was going and I didn't want to go. So sometimes change is conscious and you're proactive. I celebrate, but sometimes in my life, the best change has come in transformative experiences, falls, diagnoses, heartbreak, relationship challenges. That's when the universe has my undivided attention. I'm going to work on that with the universe where I'm like, let it just be a whisper. Let me just stumble. I don't want to have surgery to hear. But I'm just saying all those things because if I can be a vessel for others to learn from, and now you don't have to go down the path I went down, or now you don't suffer as much because you're like, oh, instead of doing this, which I know if I engage in anger, it's going to lead to more conflict. Now I may not talk to this person for months. Instead of doing that, what if I just wrote them a letter? Still expressing my feelings, but not having it where it's like, you're in my face, I'm in your face, and you're going back and forth. Because at that point, angry ears cannot hear. So I'm just allowing people to have other tools and techniques, like you said, to clear the mind, to address the clutter, to address the chaos, so they can come back to a baseline. Because that's what the soul wants. Every experiences should lead you back to peace and another perspective.
Because you're a Reiki practitioner, do you combine Reiki in any of your, in like when you're doing yoga or like when you're working with the client?
I do. I have to be invited to do Reiki. So when I sign people into yoga, I will let them know. I didn't even know I was doing Reiki until I got Reiki certified. So I'm doing yoga and it's just an innate gift. Like I mentioned before, I walked into the yoga class as a student and they're like, you're great at it. And then I get certified not to teach Roxy. I got certified because I'm a spiritual nerd and I'm like, oh, I'll sound intelligent about all these yoga principles. Then I got hired to teach and I've been teaching pretty much ever since. So to answer your question, similar to yoga where it was just an innate gift, I think I was doing Reiki before I had the ability to articulate what I was doing as Reiki. I do it in my yoga classes. People do have a cleansing because of what is incorporated. But the beautiful thing about Reiki is you are doing most of the work. It's just allowing you to be in a space to hear and let go. But it truly is connecting you with the best part of yourself that knows I'm healed, that knows I'm free of stress, that knows, oh my goodness, life can be good and life can be fulfilling. So I'm the conduit. And if my frequency of healing is high, then that's where other people are meeting me. So the benefit of yoga as well, and why you may not have resonated with yoga, and as your listeners are hearing, you are going to tap into the frequency of the person who's managing the class and organizing the class. And just like dating, if you can't feel that, if you can't resonate with that, it's almost going to be like oil and water. So I do definitely have Reiki as a part of even my writing process. But definitely to your point about yoga, you come to my class, you listen to my videos, you're going to get that a part of my experience because I can't turn it off. Like you've been said, you go into corporate, so you check your personal life at the door. Every time that I've done that, I have not been able to succeed. I have to work in places that can see me as my full natural hair, yoga, eccentric self because they benefit. Because every place needs healing. Like sometimes we're like, it's corporate America and it's all about finance and marketing and all the good things. And it is. But for people to come and be their best self, you have to have managers and leaders who know how to effectively manage and lead. And that's where there's a level of Reiki that comes, even as I incorporate that in my meetings, how I meet with my direct reports, how I connect with others, because everybody wants to be healed. We can say everybody wants peace. We call it work-life balance. These are all terms that are leading us right back to what? Peace.
That's true. Huge on the work-life balance too.
Huge, 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 huge.
Yeah, but you did share earlier how to decompress, even if you were working remotely, the 2 minutes it takes for breathing exercises before you like hit your personal life. Like, I'm definitely going to start doing that because it does get overwhelming just like trying to flip the switch, in
Mhm.
like seconds.
Mhm.
But since I'm in my little corner in the office, I feel like once I shut everything down, I'm just going to stay in here for a couple minutes and then go out.
Correct. Something else that is a good tactic, it depends on how you think, how you operate. I always carry thank you notes with me, and I will consciously write something and give it to somebody, a stranger, whatever. I like to be in the moment, and there's something about the handwritten note that makes it more heartfelt. It's how you connect with a different part of your brain. So, another really good tactic, I think for you especially, write yourself a thank you note email that is going to be in your inbox when you get to work, so it balances out all of the other emails. If that is not something you want to necessarily do because that's still keeping you in that technology, write yourself a thank you note that's just thanking you for something you did that you were surprised it did. Like those things consciously allow you to be on a frequency of gratitude. And when you meet your children and your husband in this amazing new bundle of joy, you're going to have these great experiences because you're already coming from a space of gratitude. And that's what I said before, like kids want to be seen and heard, spouses want to be seen and heard, family members, moms, dads, everybody does. If I can be grateful, then that is how I meet them. So I can have gratitude for them in that moment and in that minute.
I love that. Even having like some post-its and a pen in the restroom and then decompressing before I go to sleep, washing my face and everything, writing something, putting it on the mirror. So in the morning, that's the first thing I see.
Yes, like it's easy and then it becomes fun. It truly becomes fun. I have I don't even know what I would call it. It's like a metal container that has thankfulness. And I keep post-it notes in there. And I have people who come visit me write down something and put it in there. And at the end of the year, I take time to do like a blessing over it and burn it because I don't necessarily want to read what is a private moment that someone may
Right.
leave. So there's two things. I do that, and then I call her my fairy godmother who lives in Hilton Head. She has a Polaroid camera. So she takes a picture of everyone who visits her and asks them to write her a note, and she has it in a clear container. So you can do two things. One, I like the anonymous ability with what I have for people to write things. I put it in there, I burn it at the end of the year. Whereas with her, she does a Polaroid picture and she has everyone write a note, and it's in this clear container, which she reads on those days where she may be having a low moment or where she may need a little bit more inspiration. But just like you said, a post-it note on the mirror, that is how you wake up in the morning. So that could be what you need to give yourself the baseline of, oh, I feel really good about the day. But then those other two techniques, either the clear bowl or having something else where you're allowing people who come and visit you to leave you something, or even like a prayer request, anything that they want to put in the universe where they feel like maybe in the past it's gone overlooked, are really good techniques as well to keep your home life full of gratitude. Because you have to balance out the energy if you're working from home and corporate America feels like stress, feels like pressure. So you have to do something in the home to balance those things out. And those two things will make a significance.
I love those ideas of the jars. That's
Mhm.
so awesome. Like to come back to and everything. Those are amazing ideas. We're getting to the last of the episode. So, what advice
Yes.
would you give our listeners that are going through a tough time right now?
The advice to trust themselves. So things happen to us. It's how we respond that defines that moment. I could be lamenting over my foot. And because my sister was like, are you in denial? Because not only did it break in 5 places and required surgery, it was dislocated. So the foot was quite disfigured when I got to the hospital. I chose in that moment to truly focus on the medical staff and how awesome they were and the level of care that I had. I also had to believe that this was temporary. So, the advice I give to your listeners is as things happen, recognize that it's happening to you, but it's not defining you. What will define you is how you respond to it. In hard times, continue to have your baseline. I wake up every morning. It may take longer for me to get dressed, but I still get dressed. I still put on some fragrance that makes me feel like Jeryn. I take time to journal and write and find gratitude for every moment. 2 weeks ago, I was grateful for the amazing workout I did at the gym. Today, I'm grateful, literally, Roxy, for not falling on my crutches going to the restroom. So, what I'm saying, seriously, so the magnitude of the experience is sometimes what causes stress because we have expectations. Well, I do all these great things. I go to the gym, I work out, I do yoga for, 5 times a week. I physically cannot do that. But what can I do? So the tough times may come, but if you're always ready, you don't have to get ready, which
Mhm.
means create a mindfulness practice today that no matter what happens, you do that. Yes, I can't exercise like I did before, but I can still move my arms. Yes, I can't do a lot of the different things, but every day, multiple times a day, I acknowledge the sacrifice she's making and I'm showing gratitude. Yes, I'm here for over a month, but how many adult children have the ability to say they have their parents? Their parents can help them and support them and love them. So you said it best at the beginning of the hour. What is your perspective? So the main advice is if I had 3 things, make sure you keep a positive perspective. If you don't have that positivity, call someone who is positive and you trust so you can be fully honest, flaws and all, going back to your question about a dream come true. Take your mask off. Be honest with others so they can meet you where you are and they can pour resilience in you when you may not have the resilience in the moment. And then second, create a schedule. I can't work out the way I worked out before, but I'm still moving. I'm still journaling. I'm still coming out and finding the sunshine. It may take me 20 minutes to get outside on my crutches, but I still go outside to sit in the sun. So environment is still very important no matter what. Fresh air, doing the breath, and then creating goals. The goals may look different when you were at a different place. So people that I know that are going through divorce, this is happening. I hate this person. No, 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 no. This is happening so you are more, deserve more. Write down the goals of what does more look like. If it's a health challenge, identify foods that can help. So apples are great to have. They also help with histamines. So if you start your day with hot water and lemon and you're cleansing your palate and you're cleansing your body, you're going to feel better. I'm on a lot of medicine and people who know me know I hate taking medicine, but I'm listening to the doctor's orders because they know best. But I'm also making sure that I'm hydrating. So hydrate, keep a positive perspective, surround yourself with people who can lift you up when you're struggling yourself. And even though it may be hard, continue to move your body. Even though it may take you longer to get outside, no matter what the climate is, take your favorite blanket if it's cold. Here in Pittsburgh, it's still in the 70s, and it's been getting warmer. I make sure to go out and take deep breaths to cleanse my aura and just to recognize that this is happening to me, but it's not going to define who I am, and reminding yourself this is temporary. But what is permanent is your perspective, are your patterns, and how you see yourself in this world.
I love that. And then you also said you're here to remind everybody that the best life is just a decision away.
A choice away, a practice away, a phone call away, a podcast away. I hope that your listeners feel better now. Like, oh, I may have been having a bad day. Roxy had gems, Jeryn had gems. But the beauty of our connection, we've never met in person, but I know you because your soul is so beautiful. And when you're a light worker, you're looking for other light workers. So things like this, like you're doing so much goodwill because you're giving perspective that they may not have had before. And although we've had some spiritual terms, but we've kept it super real. And I want spirituality for the layperson. Don't feel like you have to go to church every week. Church has always been in you from the time you came into this world, because as you were being formed in the womb, you were given everything that you needed. So even with the question you said, what happens during tough times? You got to get clear about who you are and you have to tap in because your soul is always going to lead you to peace. And that's what all of these experiences are doing for the wake up call. It's the fall that says, oh, okay, maybe I need more patience in my life. It's the divorce or breakup that says, oh, maybe this wasn't for my highest good and I wasn't getting the love I needed. It feels hard in the moment, but don't focus on the problem. Create opportunities where you see potential and let other people say, I see the potential. I see endless possibilities. And as long as you focus on that, you have the ability to generate goals to get you from this point to the point of living your best life.
I love that so much, and I appreciate you so much. And to kind of close off on this amazing episode, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a lot of takeaways from, I do have a Rocks With Me playlist on Spotify with songs that are suggested and recommended by guests. So, what's that one song you'd want the people to listen to, or that one song is your go-to song to put you in a good mood?
So, because I've been here with my parents for the past week, they have been subjected to my listening patterns. I put on Beautiful Chorus every morning. It is folk music that gives you feel good music, but you asked me for that one song. I think I'm going to have to say I Am Light by India Arie.
I'll definitely add that to the playlist. The title itself is already like, let's get this going. Don't dim your light. Come on, shine bright.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Jeryn, I appreciate your conversation with me. It's always such a joy to have you and to just have these conversations with you. And they get to like so many different levels of like our mind, body, and soul that you come across. And like I said, you're such a beautiful soul, and I appreciate your time. Any last minute thing before we wrap up?
I would say, number one, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So grateful for us connecting today. Grateful for our meeting before. The lasting advice I would give to every listener and even myself is you have this. And believing you have this will shape everything you do, will shape every action, and also will allow you to think and see yourself in a way where you know you're deserving and worthy of only goodness. Having something is not always having the answers. Having something is having the conviction and confidence to continue to know that each and every day, by being intentional, by being mindful, by being very aware of what you're feeling, that you're able to get through anything. So my lasting point, whoever is listening, is there's someone in your life here, or even someone who's passed on. Like I've had some amazing people in my life, amazing ancestors, my grandmother, my grandfather, all of these individuals who loved on me, who saw me as bigger than what I saw myself. Tap into that, because having this realizes that you're not doing this alone, that you already have the resources, that it's okay to ask for help and to remind yourself, I have this. I have all the answers within. I just have to find peace and silence to tap into that knowledge to get me through. And by doing that, you can now create and tap back into the beautiful puzzle that we have in this world, because people also need to know that they're seen, that they're heard, but more importantly, that they're needed. When you dim your light, someone else is not able to shine there. When you dim your light, other people are not able to see all the things that they need to see. So really, this is that self-love, empowerment, confidence moment where I just want people to just love on themselves, because I love everyone and everyone is valuable in this experience as we're going through this matrix that we call life.
Oh, I love that. We're definitely going to have to do this again, because like I said, you always come with gems. And hopefully next time you're promoting,
yes, definitely have to.
Hopefully next time you're promoting your deck of cards, inspirational cards.
Next time we meet, my goal is walking on two legs, not crutches, fully healed. And more importantly, what I'm speaking into this experience is full restoration. As a yogi, as someone who does so much, I rely a lot on my body. But even in the break, even in the surgery, I told the surgeon, like, I'm going to be better than new. I'm going to be bionic. And they even asked, who are you? Like, how do you exist? Like, this is some superhuman. But going back to what I was saying is, I had to believe in that moment. I had everything I needed, and this was going to be for my highest good. So that is my goal. The next time we meet, I'll stand so people can see I can stand on 2 feet. I'm going to have that deck of cards, and I am going to create channels of chameleon consciousness to tap into those who need to be reminded of their own worth.
I love it. Speak it to existence.
Speak it into existence, Roxy. Yes.
Yes, I'm all for it. Well, thank you all for tuning in to this episode. I hope you take away a bunch of good things like I have. I'll link her Instagram, her social media contacts, her YouTube channel in the show notes for you all to check her out and connect with her. And a reminder, if you haven't heard it today, you're hearing it now. All are remarkable. You are resilient, and we are proud of you. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye-bye.